All right, greetings. So turn up the video speed. So what's it like when you have a paid off house really young? Well, it's kind of like having chick privilege. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll explain. Freedom Phil, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. And hey, turn up the video speed. Why do I always say that? Because you can watch videos faster. Why wouldn't you? It's what I do. Let's get into it. What I mean by chick privilege is when you don't have the bills, the car payments, the commute that have to go to work because you did the hard road in the early game. Like I've said, retirement by 30, work 7 to 10 years, live as cheap as possible, invest when you're young. Your money starts making you money. Go buy a cheap house somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere in the country, and yeah, you own the house. It's good. Do updates on it occasionally. Yeah, the whole game changes for you. I mean, the whole game because everybody else is going to work and commuting and they've got to have the nice cars and the nice things to get to work and then all the bills and BS. And how much of your life did you give away in the school system, then the college system, and then you got to buy the expensive house? You basically were taught to be a slave your whole life, as where if you had just focused on the house, or let's just say the retirement investing when you're young, and then basically let compound interest work for you. Yeah, what would you do with the rest of your life? Well, I can tell you. And this is why I say it's like chick privilege. When you see those chicks, whether it's old or young, and after the kids go to school, they're just kind of like, what do I do today? I did a little cleaning, a little organization. I made some food, and they're busy. They're somewhat busy, but it's like all privileged type of business stuff, busy stuff, where it's like, if you were really grinding and working, you just kind of get home, eat something, maybe have a beer or two, and go to bed. Wake up the next day, repeat process 5 days a week, and hopefully you kind of recover on Saturday and Sunday. But you also probably got a lot of chores to catch up on that day. No, you just kind of do what you want to do, whether that's, say gardening, mountain biking, exercise, video games. You just get up and do whatever you want. And then eventually you might be like, man, I really should be doing more with myself. So you end up just doing some productive things just to feel some level of accomplishment. And that's where it's kind of funny because when people talk about how hard it is in America, no, it's mostly self-inflicted crap. And you were set up for failure. I will fully acknowledge that your school system set you up. They took 13 years to teach you to be good enough to do what? With no extracurricular, you're good enough to do what? Flip hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves. And what I mean by that, you actually have to be trained to do those two jobs. You could have been trained at 10 years old to do that crap and then go to a trade school or a college, go to the military so your college doesn't cost so much. They basically waste the first quarter or third of your life, depending on how long you live. Just wasted. May even be half your life. You might not really have anything set up by the age of 30 the way that you've been trained. But when I say retirement by 30, and there's no sales pitch, there's none of that. It's just common sense. Live efficiently, save your money. Don't have kids when you can't afford to feed yourself. Have a paid off house. And there's cheap housing all over the Midwest. Don't believe me? Look up a place called Savannah, Tennessee. There's a couple houses, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath down there for 60 to 70,000. And yes, they're older houses, but you could pay cash for that and it'd be your house and you'd never have a payment again. You'd have what? Your insurance and all the utilities you were paying anyways. Basically all the stuff you're paying for as a renter, or is it your mortgage? That a compound interest that works against you if you invest when you're young, works for you. And the truth of it is, you are doing the most beneficent thing in the world by having your game together when you're young. Because people talk about GDP and the economy, blah, 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 blah. That's all bullshit. If you had your money invested working and making other people money, and then making you money because they're making money, and you weren't working, that means you've opened up a job spot. And your face mask is already secure on this plane. Your lifeboat is already figured out. You've already got what you need. Therefore, you're making room for the next up and coming people to do better instead of taking 40, 50 years to do it. Because that was the problem back in the day. A lot of people, they wouldn't want to train the next generation because they'd say, well, I'm not going to train my replacement. But the more responsible you are when you're young, the less you're going to have to play in that game. And make no mistake, as I've said many times before, like say a $500,000 house at 6% interest, that's what, 30 grand the first year you paid in interest approximately. And then you think about, your commuting cost, your car that's $700 to $1,000. You want something that's respectable. So $1,000, so $12,000 there. And then let's say you make $25 an hour. Going back and forth an hour each way. So $50 times 5 days a week we're talking $250. So that times 50 weeks of the year, because 2 weeks off for vacation, you're talking 12,500 there. So we're already up to over about 25,000. Oh, don't forget car insurance and gas. Yeah, most of your work is pissed away just to go to work so you can pay that mortgage in that city. Oh, I make 80,000 a year. Effectively, how much do you have left to really make any difference in your life? Yeah. That's why I tell people drive truck, do the trades as young as possible, get that learn that trade. And if you know the trades, you know that you could basically be buying old houses. You could do remodels on them, get them good up, and have somebody else renting it. They're paying your bills. Although, would you want to deal with renters if you don't have to? You could buy an old house and do all the work on it yourself. Instead of going out there and spending X amount of, I think the school system in America is absolute crap. After 13 years, your kids are going to have to do what? With hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves? No, it's a scam. And you put it in perspective and you really get down to it. What if you just skipped all the excess things in the way of you getting to the point where you could basically be out of the game? You could be good. And then it comes down to, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Now you're on privileged chick mode. Well, today I feel like doing this. I gardened and I made some food. I looked up some videos on how to do something yourself and I made a basket. That's what I'm saying. Life can be on easy mode or life can be on hard mode. But all these people telling you that there's no future in America, there's no future of the worldwide. No, there's lots of money to be made. And there's lots of ways you can not spend as much for the things you think you need. And then it becomes, what do you want to do with your life? We should all be aiming to being privileged chicks. Except for we're dudes who would just rather go fishing and play video games. Freedom Phil, y'all take it easy. You have a great day.